What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
All right, good afternoon and welcome to the 268th episode of the Alpha Insurance Drive to the GHSA State Title. We do have a new sponsor on the show, so we want to thank them. Today we're going to preview the week 3 games, and we're going to be joined by Coffee head coach Mike Coe. I'm excited to have him on. We tried to connect last year in November, but I think there was an issue, but we do have them. They're off this week. They've had a great 2-0 start, and then we'll preview our big game tonight, the Carrollton at Rome. But let's go ahead and get started with Coach Coe. All right, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. So I'm excited to get to talk to you. The first thing I want to say is you had a ton of success in the state of Florida before coming to Coffee. Just talk a little bit about that and just what you were able to accomplish and establish at Madison County.
Well, Madison's a special place. Coach McPherson was there before me, and then Coach Frankie Carroll. But, Coach McPherson won a state title there in 2001 and then went up the road to Lowndes and obviously the success he had there. And then I actually did not get to coach with him. I came in a year later, but I became the head coach there in 2010. And it's a great community. It's a small place. There's not a lot to do, so football is big there. It's night light, small town environment, and, has really good players that bought in, and it wasn't the players, but the community was behind us from jump, and just build there and try to do it the right way and love on kids and hold them accountable and bring good men in to be on our coaching staff. And, just got to a point where, we believe no matter who we went out and played, and we weren't going to worry really about the results. We're just going to try to go do things our way. And the kids bought into that. And we were fortunate to win some state titles there. I felt like it was time to go try something else. I'd been there 20 years, and honestly, I was trying to get into the college ranks and had met with Coach Mickey Andrews, Florida State's old defense coordinator, on a Monday, I believe it was. And the next day I'm pulling into the driveway after work, and Jerry Odom gave me a call, who's the head coach at Tusculum now, but had been the head coach at Coffee way back in 05, 06, and 07. We actually played them at Madison. And Jerry said, man, Coffee job's coming open. I think it'd be a great fit for you. I think, I know you'll probably never leave Madison, but would you at least consider it and interview? And I said, yeah, man, I sure will. And everything just worked out perfect. I felt a peace about it. The support here from the superintendent to our principal and administration, our faculty, our community. It's South Georgia football through and through. And the kids have been just been really, really good. So I'm really enjoying it. Been here over a year now, and I feel like our kids have been through our off-season process, and so we started off pretty good. But I owe a lot to Madison County, and especially the young men that played for me there and bought in and played their guts out for me for a long time.
Absolutely, and you were inducted into the Florida Coaches Hall of Fame. You won Coach of the Year many, many times. And were you also in charge of their strength and conditioning program for a time?
Yeah, so there, man, again, it's small. So for 19 of the 20 years there, I coached football and at least one more other sport. And then for 13 of the 19 years, I was athletic director as well. So it was year-round, 24/7, 365, but I wouldn't trade that. I mean, got to coach a lot of wonderful kids and work with a lot of wonderful people. And, you know, we were with our kids year round because we encouraged them to play other sports. And all my coaches there coached either baseball, softball, track, weightlifting, you name it. But, yeah, I ran the weight room. I ran the weight room pretty much when I got there in 2003, you know, until I left.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to ask you, because you won a lot of state titles there, and a big key to that obviously is just improving throughout the season, staying conditioned. So what has your approach been just in terms of lifting during the season, and kind of what have you brought to the Trojans in that term?
Well, you know, the thing about Coffee, Coach Mike Booth is a strength coach here and has been here since Coach Pruitt, you know, came back 10, 11 years ago. And he is unbelievable. He just gets the one thing we needed to do in order to compete at a higher level was get faster. And so this off season, we took a little different approach. A lot more plyometrics, a lot more speed work, and just competing. You know, doing our speed work. A lot of just, you know, what you would consider, you know, doing as little kids, just racing. You know, no matter what we were doing, we were competing and trying to win, and a lot of racing. And then I study Matt Ray, who was at Alabama and is now the Saints strength and conditioning coach. But, you know, a lot of times older coaches, they get speed work and conditioning confused, and they mix it all in there the same. You know, you gotta give kids proper rest where they can, you know, go 100% and everything they're doing sprint. And then our track program, you know, we really engage kids to run track. And I tell them, you know, if you want to touch the football, you got to run track. And a lot of our guys ran track, and I think we're faster now than we were when I first got here. And we just got to continue that. You know, you have to keep working it during the season along with your lifting. Now, we still get after it in the weight room. You know, I think a lot of schools maybe back off. We're just the opposite. We're going to try to attack it and continue getting stronger and do a lot of prehab stuff, you know, with hamstrings, soft tissue injuries. You know, kids can't help you if they're not out there on the field. So we do a lot of that stuff too.
Yeah, and Coffee really was a special place because they've had so much success, and it's a program that they want to compete for a state title year in and year out. So I want to ask you, when you first got there, was it kind of a smaller senior class that first year? I know it was a special group, but just in terms of the overall numbers.
Yeah, I think we only had 14 maybe. I think there was 14 seniors, and actually, I think we sent 9 of them off to play ball. You know, so it was a good group. It was just smaller. You know, I think we've got 21 or 22 in this group, and then next year's group, our junior class. Now I think it's over 40 in that group, and that's really what we're aiming for, trying to get 40 or more in each group. And I've made some changes our middle school, structurally wise, you know, to try to help that as well, to keep kids out, and each grade level has its own staff and things like that. So we're definitely trying to get more numbers out, but the group I have right now, trade them for anybody. I think they're a special group. They love each other. They'll play together. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, and it was a great first season for you. You guys had a ton of success. I want to ask you, though, you mentioned just South Georgia football. Obviously, you had some familiarity with it when you're at Florida. A lot of those teams will face off. You said you had played Coffee before, but I mean, what was it like just playing at some of these historic venues? I know Tift County, Brody Field, that's a special place. Tift County, I think, is actually the turf capital of the world. Not turf as the synthetic one, but in terms of the grass, they actually think they had the opening ceremonies field for the Tokyo Olympics. So, I mean, what was it like just playing in some of these South Georgia environments?
Well, I mean, as a coach, it's kind of, you know, like the ultimate deal that, you know, you want to test yourself, and you know, it's electric every Friday night. I mean, like, you know, even, you know, which is a smaller school, but I mean, they're mighty good and have been good for a while, and Tucker does a great job. But, you know, like our, you know, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I mean, that thing felt like a game. I mean, it's packed. You know, it's a neighboring county, and the environment was electric. I mean, it was a physical football game, you know, and then Tift coming into town. They've been a rival of Coffee's forever, and then last week with Bainbridge. I mean, every week you got to be ready to go. There's not a lot of places there where you just say, hey, we got this one. And, the coach, I think because of the pay being so much better and the resources and all that, you've got a better coach up here. Like in my staff, we'd have 8 or 9 guys, and 4 or 5 of them would have to be community guys. Where here, you'll have 8, 9, 10, 12 guys on staff that work at the school every day. And so that's a big difference, when guys can be there at the school and that's their main job. And the coaching is elite in the state of Georgia, and especially South Georgia. And but it's exciting, and that's why you coach. I mean, you got a challenge every week, and you get to test yourself every week.
Yep, and South Georgia football is just so special. I mean, last year, you look at the playoff picture, some of the state championship, it was such a great year for South Georgia all around. The facilities are just getting better, and I mean, South Georgia stays super competitive, and you see what some of these programs are doing. It's incredible. But I want to talk about the speed specifically. So what have you seen just year 1 to year 2, just adding that emphasis to it, just translate to the field?
Well, just, when like last year when we played Bainbridge, I felt like they were a lot faster than us. We'd have a triple option component, and we'd pitch it to a guy that, had the edge, and he's only getting 8 or 10 yards, and you're not going to win a lot of games like that. Or when you play Ware County, and the few opportunities they give you to make a big play, and their speed overtakes you, and so we just had to get faster, and our kids knew that. And I made about an 8 to 10, 12 play video showing our kids where we had the numbers on somebody or an advantage, and because we were not fast enough, we didn't score, and we may not have scored that drive. And show came back from Christmas, and just to show them, if you want to go where you say you want to go, we have to get faster. And so they all bought in, 100%. And then our quarterback coach, Coach LaShawn Smith, worked with all of the sprinters on the track team. And so that's what all our guys did. And it wasn't just guys carrying the ball. It was our linebackers, our DBs, trying to get more speed in all 3 phases of the game, and it worked out for us against Fitzgerald. Our first play was a little triple option deal, and we flipped it to our slot, and hit from about 8 yards. And then our second play, we handed it to our big running back, Big Fred Brown, running sweep, and he housed it from 65. Now, Fred's not a burner. He's probably a 4'8" kid. The last year, he was probably 5 flat, 5'1", But those first 2 snaps offensively, we score from over 60 yards out, and that kind of proved to our kids, hey, Coach is right about this thing, man. We're a lot more electric, than we were last year. And that was the goal, and we're not there yet. We've got to continue to get faster, and we got to start down the middle school ranks, that way by the time they get to us, they're already rocking and rolling.
Absolutely, yeah. The game speed's just getting pretty noticeable, just how it's improving. It's not the case where you have like 2 or 3 burners now. As you said, it's all these positions. You got to play a lot faster. But let's talk about Fred Brown a little bit. 5'10", physical guy. You said he's gotten a little faster. What have you seen from him just this season, his senior year, just what he's been able to do to take that next step?
Well, he's really, really strong. He broke the school record this offseason in squat and power clean and hang clean. Again, his emphasis on getting faster, but to me, his vision has gotten better, and his one cut ability, like he can jump cut and get vertical, but the main thing is he's gotten in tremendous shape. He was not in tremendous shape last year when I got here. Didn't necessarily push himself like he has this offseason. He's pushed himself. I think part of it is offensively we're playing with tempo now, so you really don't have a choice. You got to go. But he's gotten in tremendous shape, and I don't know that he could have carried the ball 25 to 30 times a game last year like he's done so far this season, you know. But he's always been able to do the inside running, but now we don't have to take him out when we want to run option or sweep or outside runs. I feel comfortable with him running all of them.
Oh, yeah. And so he's at a tremendous start, taking a lot of touches, averaging over 200 yards per game. He's a senior this year. Maurice, your quarterback, he can throw it. It looks like you have a pretty solid senior class that you've gotten to coach last year and just see step into this spotlight.
Yeah, they've been tremendous. I mean, like I said, there's 21 of them, but I mean, and the good thing is we've got guys at every level of the offense and defense. Our starting center and starting left tackle are seniors. You know, our quarterback's a senior. We got a couple receivers that are older guys. You know, Pat McCall in the slot, that's a senior. And then over on defense, you know, our middle linebacker's a returner, that's a senior. And then free safety, Tyreek Edwards is a senior. And then Anthony Polk, who's probably our best overall player. He can play just about anywhere. You know, he plays some receiver on offense, some running back. He plays some corner, some safety, just basically, you know, depending on who we're playing that week. But he's a senior. He's a 2-year all-region kid at corner. You know, so we've got guys that have been there and played in big games. And again, they've bought in to what, you know, we're doing. We've worked really hard on building relationships with them. You know, real authentic relationships, and I think they know that. And the thing I love is it feels like one of my old teams from Madison. Guys are more like brothers than they are teammates, and they just have a lot of. We don't spend a lot of time having to fire them up. You know, they're ready to rock and roll. And honestly, you know, knock on wood, we haven't had a bad practice yet. I mean, we've had great practices, and they compete at practice, but they practice smart. You know, they don't go low on each other and foolish things. And they're just, man, it's been a really, really good group.
Yeah, you mentioned Anthony Polk. I think it was after your big Statesboro win in region play last year. That was your second region victory. Looks like you guys really got rolling, but you kind of noticed in that game Anthony Polk really stood out. Talk about just his emergence just as a leader, what you saw throughout last season, and just how valuable he is this year.
Well, probably his best attributes is competitiveness, his competitive spirit. I mean, that joker wants to win at everything. I mean, and you're going to know he's there. He's going to let you know he's there too, but he loves football. He loves competing. You know, he's not scared of anything. He feels like he's the best player on the field no matter who we're playing. And our other kids believe that. And my challenge to him the whole offseason was, it's not enough for you to do what you're supposed to do. I need you to affect guys around you. I need you to hold other guys accountable. I'm going to hold you more accountable than anybody on our team. You know, if I tell you you're our best player, then I'm going to hold you the most accountable. And I need you to take that into the locker room. And he ran track, and he's great in the weight room. He's over a 4.0 student, takes college classes. I mean, everything he does is 100%. And then a lot of that's, you know, credit to his parents, who they don't accept anything less, you know. And he's fun to be around, but you can coach him hard. You know, he's not one of them guys that says, hey, I'm a good football player and I'm going to pout when things don't go my way. He wants to be coached hard. He wants to do it the right way, you know, and it's contagious. Just like being the other way is contagious. You know, he's contagious doing the right things with our other kids, and our other kids feed off of him.
And then talk a little bit about what you've seen from your defense so far. I mean, you played Tift County week 1, a tremendous Bainbridge team. Week 2, you talked about the speed they had. They're so impressive just in 4A. They can compete with anyone. But, I mean, how's the defense just played, set the tone, communicated, and just done its best to avoid those big plays?
Yeah, again, I brought Coach Granado in to be our defense coordinator. He was the head coach down at West Orange High School in Orlando. He had coached with me at Madison way back for 3 years, like a little brother to me, and he's done a great job. He does it the right way, and he made a decision this off season. Most of the defensive staff was already here. We kept most of those guys, and they were far more comfortable with an odd front. And Coach Granado came in one day and said, Coach, I think we need to go back to odd front. That's what I'm most comfortable with. That's what all of our defense are most comfortable with. And, you know, it'd be easier for me to just learn some things they've done in the past than them have to learn, you know, all this new stuff. And so, you know, I applauded him for that, to have the guts to do that and to be unselfish. And since that day, man, it's been wonderful. Those guys get along. You'd think they worked together forever. They went up to North Carolina State for 3 or 4 days in the off season and studied their odd package from Tony Gibson, their defense coordinator. And our kids are more comfortable with it. And the communication has been big. You know, you mentioned that. It's been really big. They talk a lot more, you know, and they work their tails off. They work on tackling every day, getting to the football every day. And that our staff on the defense side has done a really good job. And, again, you think they've been together forever. They've only been together a little over a year. But everything's a lot smoother now, just the lingo and the communication and who's lining up where and who's doing what. And man, second half the other night, they played lights out. I mean, Bainbridge, quarterback and the running back, and two, that slot kid, they're special football players. And I think they held the running back to like 80 yards rushing. And I was really, really proud of our defense. Offensively, we played well in the first half and did just enough second half. But defensively, second half, they were determined to come out and shut the door, and they did that. They did a great job.
Yep, and it was a great way. You guys fell to Bainbridge last year in the Coast 1. You got an impressive victory this year. Dominated time of possession, so I know the offensive lines come out and help set the tone. You mentioned you had a senior center. I think that's the position you played back in the day. So who's the center up front for you guys?
Gabe Ruiz is a starter, and Jaden Vester plays quite a bit. Coach Bob Hall plays about 8 guys there. And, man, this is year 30 for me, and I've had some really good O-line coaches. But Bob Hall is as good as it gets. I mean, we lost 3 really, really good senior offensive linemen, and this group has had a chip on their shoulder ever since, because everybody's told them, you know, y'all aren't going to be as good as the group from last year. You're not as big as those guys. And I'm telling you, these guys are fun to watch now. They're not huge. You know, I mean, our tackles are pretty good size, but they play hard. They practice hard every day. And they play smart. I mean, Coach Hall puts a lot on them, and I've been really, really impressed. Fred gets a lot of the publicity, and he should. He's done a great job. But those big boys up front and our 2 H-backs, Range Robinson and Brady Shook, both of them senior kids, about 210, 215, that are strong as oxes and unselfish. Man, they're so unselfish. But those guys play a huge role in what we do too.
Yep, you had to replace among them Mason Roberts, first team All-State on the offensive line, so that's a great sign to see them stepping up. So you guys are on the bye right now, and then you'll be at Bowles, Florida. That's a impressive team. Did you ever play them when you were down at Florida?
Yeah, I hate you brought that up. I hadn't beat them yet, so I'm excited to go. Now that's, you know, Coach Corky Rogers was the head coach, and man, you know, that's what I told our kids. I'm like, you're fixing to play one of the top 5 schools ever in the state of Florida, 11 state championships. I mean, legendary. Coach Rogers was really good to me, though. Really good to me. I got to go over there and spend some time with him. But Coach Toglin does a great job as well. I know Matt and some of the other guys on their staff, and they do a great job. We'll have our hands full, but I'm excited. You know, our kids are excited. It's a great venue. You know, and we hope to keep playing in that thing for years to come.
Awesome. Well, Coach Coe, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. Happy Labor Day.
Sir.
Enjoy the bye week, and we can't wait to see you guys get back out there on the field.
Yes, sir. Thank you, buddy.
Awesome. Go Trojans. All right, so there goes Coach Coe. I thought that was very interesting. I've been wanting to get him on. Huge win over Tift County week 1. 23-14 win over Bainbridge that avenged the 24-21 loss last year. Bainbridge was number 4 in 4A, Coffee number 4 in 5A. They get the win. So Coffee remains number 4, and then they will have Salem and Richmond Hill before region play. And then the big season finale at Ware County. That was their only region loss last year, and obviously Ware County went on to win the state title. So they've got a great region, and they've been outstanding. They'll be fun to watch. But let's go ahead. We'll take a break and thank our sponsor.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.
All right, so welcome back. So in this segment, I'm going to talk about some of the top games on the Week 3 slate, and I'll preview Rome and Carrollton and give my predictions. So the top 30 games, these will likely be the ones that you'll see being updated throughout the night on the score ticker. I've thought they were the most interesting games for a variety of reasons, but let's go ahead and get started. All right, Alatoona at Cartersville. That's been an exciting matchup. They've been on each other's schedule. Cartersville is coming off a big victory over Jonesboro. Alatoona fell last week to Kell. It was a close game. Kell jumped out to a pretty big lead. Alatoona fought back. They've got a new coach, so let's see what goes down in that one. I believe that is a 5A versus 5A matchup. You have Archer at Mill Creek. Archer lost last week. Mill Creek's been rolling. A lot of the polls have Mill Creek at number 4 ahead of Walton. I think they're a top 5 team. I do think Walton's been slightly more impressive this year. I think even the pollsters admit that. There's an article out that was like, Buford's number 1, but Walton's close on their heels. It's like, well, why are they ranked number 5 then? Shouldn't they be number 2 or 3? And then in the article, they point out that in Buford's latest win over Mallard Creek, I don't want to compare this team to last year, but Buford won that game 56-7 last year. This year it was a 1-score game. I don't know what to take away from that, but certainly Walton is on their heels. But Mill Creek also has been outstanding. They had a big win last week, and then that was over Norcross. They beat North Gwinnett in the opener, and Cam Robinson, their running back, has now rushed for 200 plus yards in the last 3 games. He did it in the state championship against Carrollton. He did it in the opener, and then he just did it again. So Cam Robinson is pacing the state in terms of backs right now in 7A. He looks outstanding. And then he really wasn't even a running back until late last year when they realized what he could do out of the backfield. Coach Lovelady put him in there, and he's been dominant. No one has had an answer. I think he's going to have another good showing against Archer. Archer has a lot of skill guys, but I think Mill Creek has a size advantage. But I'm just interested to see what the result is in that one because Mill Creek has looked outstanding. All right, you got Baldwin at Ware County. Baldwin has had a tremendous start. They're undefeated. Ware County as well, the number 1 in 5A. So that's a top 10 matchup with a 4A team and a 5A. All right, you got Benedictine at Westminster. Westminster lost a tough one to Pace Academy last week. Benedictine's been rolling, and actually Benedictine has not lost a game to a 4A opponent in 3 years. They've lost to Ware County last year. They lost a couple out-of-state ones, but during their back-to-back title runs, they've not lost to any 4A opponent. So Westminster will be next on the slate. They'll try to take down the Cadets. I actually got the Benedictine helmet right there. As you can see, it was on the Mercedes-Benz helmet wall, but this looks like a 2008 model. They no longer have the BC Benedictine Cadets, and so I think they're going to upgrade it, and rightfully so. They are actually the only team this season that has won back-to-back state titles. They were the only one that defended it last year. All right, Cedar Grove at Westlake. That'll be a big one. Westlake looks like the real deal this year. They've been outstanding. When they beat North Cobb week 1, Coach Queen said that Westlake pretty much has like 21 D1 guys in their senior, junior classes, and it was a close game. They pulled away, but they've just looked so dominant. And then Cedar Grove has struggled a little bit in the defensive department. I think they have a great secondary, but if I had to guess, they're lacking some of the physicality up front that they've had in years past. So I think Najee highlighted some of the top 2027 players in the state, and one of them was on Cedar Grove at the defensive tackle position. So I think they're probably a little young there, but this will be a huge test for Cedar Grove for sure. All right, you got Buford at North Cobb. Speaking of Buford, this is their first Georgia game of the year. They are 2-0. They're ranked number 1. North Cobb has been off since the Westlake loss, and in this one, North Cobb has one of the best running backs in the state. They're going to be able to run the ball, and then I like North Cobb's defense a lot. So if they can avoid some of the mistakes they made in the Westlake game with turnovers, if they can get after the quarterback and just stay within striking distance, I think that that's going to be a really close game and definitely one to watch in case there's a historic outcome in that one. North Cobb gets the win. You know that's going to be the talk of the week. All right, Cedartown at Sequoia. Cedartown lost to Callaway last week. They're going to play Sequoia, who does have some good playmakers. Last year, Cedartown rolled past them, but they've had to replace a lot. So let's see how close that one is. I think it will be a good measuring stick game. All right, Coconut Creek at Gainesville. I'm interested in that one because Coconut Creek is the team that I believe they beat Cedar Grove last week. So let's see how they stack up against Gainesville. Gavin Hall's been tremendous for Gainesville. He looks like Christian McCaffrey out there getting it done, catching the ball and being their workhorse in the backfield. We'll see if Gainesville can pick up another victory, and I like them in front of the home crowd for sure. All right, Collins Hill at Brookwood. Collins Hill has been off since its Thursday opener against Milton. They lost a competitive game, and then Brookwood is coming off that 63-point defeat. I think it was 63-10 loss to Walton. So Collins Hill, what's the strength of their team? It's their defensive line. They completely shut down Milton's rushing attack. Brookwood, what's the strength of their team? It's their running attack. So how will Brookwood be able to fare offensively against one of the best defensive lines in 7A? I think Collins Hill is going to come out there off the week rest and get that win. They were very confident. When I was with some of the coaches at the bins watching Brookwood beat McEachern, they were confident that their guys are going to be able to shut down that rushing attack. All right, Colquitt County at Tift County. A rivalry game. Tift County has been struggling in that head-to-head recently, but I'm looking forward to seeing Colquitt County. Their offense has been lights out so far with Nykar at receiver. They've been racking up like 600 yards a game, tons of points, so we'll see if Colquitt can continue to impress. All right. Commerce at Hebron Christian. I think that's just going to be a really close game. Hebron is up in Class 3A now. I think they're ranked in the top 10. You got Commerce ranked in this one. I think that will be a fun game. All right, Creekview at Calhoun. I think Creekview might have an upset on its mind in this one. They're 2-0. I've been impressed with Calhoun, but week one, they struggled in terms of running the ball. Even with Caden Williams, the Liberty commit, they were able to beat Carver Atlanta last week, a great Carver team. But even in that game, they're still passing it at like 40 to 50%. So if Creekview can play stout defense, force them into third and downs, I think they can turn that into a physical matchup and potentially get the win on the road. All right, so Douglas County at McEachern. McEachern is 0-2 now. They just played Hughes. That's as good as it gets in terms of a week 2 opponent. They were coming off that Brookwood loss in the opener, a game they felt they could have won. And then why I think this is interesting, now they play Douglas County. So we saw how Hughes did against McEachern. Douglas County is in Hughes region, so let's see how Douglas County does now. They had a win over Mays in the Great Atlanta Bash last Saturday. They got off to a really bad start in that game, and then they scored nearly 42 points in the third quarter, ran away with it, and that Mays game was crazy. Mays put their Georgia commit defensive tackle in at quarterback, and he rushed for 3 touchdowns, something you don't really prepare for in X's and O's. So let's see how Douglas County plays against McEachern. We'll see how Sire Hardaway does. And then Aaron Gregory, their sophomore receiver, that I think is going to be the next A.J. Green. All right, Greater Atlanta Christian at Pace Academy. Pace Academy's coming off a big win over Westminster after losing to Holy Innocents week 1. Holy Innocents was a tough opponent because they run the triple option. They dominated that game on the ground. Then week 2, Pace Academy put up a much stronger effort against Westminster, a more balanced offense. GAC has been rolling. They beat Meadow Creek, and then I forgot who they beat this past week, but I think that'll be a good test for both those teams. All right, Hampton at Central Carroll. Both those teams are undefeated. Central Carroll has the freshman phenom at quarterback. They've been running the ball extremely well, haven't skipped a beat since Coach Darius Smiley left and went over to Sandy Creek, and they look really impressive, but Hampton is off to a great start. I think that'll be a close one. All right, Jefferson at St. Pius. Can Sammy Brown have another tremendous performance? He's been an absolute monster, a beast so far this season, and obviously his entire career, and it will just be key for St. Pius to try to find an answer. All right, Lambert at Mountain View. Lambert had a great year last year under first-year head coach Mark Leach. They were 9-0 heading into their region showdown, I believe, with Milton. Mountain View was still competitive with them in that matchup, and I think it might be closer than people think. In the Gwinnett teams that people are looking to be on the upward trajectory, I think you have Peachtree Ridge, you have the Meadow Creeks in there, but I think Mountain View might be slightly ahead of those guys, and I think they're ready to have a standout performance. And then they have Justin Green on that defensive line, the Georgia commit, and Gwinnett Super 6 selection. All right, Marietta at Roswell. Marietta finally got their 600 win last week, a really tight football game, but they're playing Roswell, who was lights out last week. The quarterback KJ Smith threw 7 touchdowns. It's at Roswell. We're going to have Roswell on the broadcast very soon. We're also going to have Marietta, so let's see what happens in that matchup. All right, Mary Persons at Trinity Christian. Trinity Christian's coming off that big fellowship win. Phoenix Moss had his breakout performance. I said he was going to be their player to watch this year. Trinity Christian has a tough region coming up in a few weeks. They will have to try to take on Teo Todd and the Troop Tigers. They'll have to take on LaGrange, Stars Mill, Whitewater as well, but they've been off to a great start, and Phoenix Moss has really had success running the ball, making plays. He is a home run threat every time he touches the ball. All right, North Forsyth at West Forsyth. West Forsyth is coming off I think it was a 1-point loss to Marietta, and then North Forsyth, that's a big rivalry game right there. All right, North Oconee at South Forsyth. A 4A versus 7A matchup. North Oconee won that one 7-3 last year, as good as they were. So let's see if North Oconee can beat the 7A program again. All right, Northside Warner Robins at Warner Robins. That's obviously a huge Middle Georgia rivalry game right there. Top 10 matchup. Definitely one to watch. All right, Peachtree Ridge at Loganville. Loganville has had one of the best defenses in the state these last few seasons. Peachtree Ridge has been lighting it up offensively with their sophomore quarterback, Darnell Kelly. They have so many skilled players, so how will they go against this Loganville defense? Peachtree Ridge beat Seconder week 1. They beat Lanier this past week, and this will be a big road test for them. And I think if they win this game, they're going to be on track to be 5-0 heading into that Meadow Creek region game. You have Perry at Jones County. Perry had they opened their season week 2 last week against Houston County. It was a close game. Eventually, Houston County had too many big plays. They won the shootout. I think Jones County will be interesting as well. They have Judd Anderson at quarterback, who had, I think, a 4 or 5 touchdown performance. Expect a high-scoring game and another great Middle Georgia showdown. All right, Rabun County and Adairsville. That'll be a good one to watch. Rabun County got absolutely smoked by Stevens County last week, and Adairsville is off to a great start. And I just felt that in the Rome area, people watching the game tonight, they're going to be interested in those teams, 2 North Georgia programs. All right, Savannah Christian at Marist. Another cross-classification top 10 matchup. One of the top teams in 3A going up against a Marist team ranked in the top 10 in 6A. Also just a cool private school matchup that typically isn't on the schedule. All right. Sonoraville at Dalton. Another big one to watch. Sonoraville is in 4A. They're undefeated. Dalton's undefeated in 5A. One that I'm sure the Rome area will be interested in. And I really like Dalton. They beat, who did they beat week 1? We had their, I think we had that coach on. Let me check this real quick. One sec. Okay, they beat North Murray, and we saw North Murray this past week with Petty having the 360 yards. So they won that North Murray game 35-14. I really like Dalton, and last year they made the playoffs out of that tough region with Cass, Calhoun, Hiram, and company. So we're almost done with this top 30. All right, Thomas County Central at Bainbridge. Big top 10 showdown. You got Troop at Callaway. Troop looks phenomenal. That's been a close game in the past. Callaway knocked off Cedartown last week. We know they're physical, but Teo Todd has been too much, and some of Troop's other playmakers. And then the last top 10 showdown, Wayne County at Appling County. I think that will be a great matchup. So just some of the highlights right there in terms of games we will be watching. All right, so let's go to our feature game tonight, though. Rome and Carrollton. So I think the first thing to keep in mind in this one is the game is at Rome, and they have been really good at home. In fact, they've won their last 3 home games against Carrollton. The only time they've lost at home was in 1996, and then they played 2 games in the 90s. I think they split those, and then they've been playing the last few seasons. So they actually were in the same region 2 years ago and then the year before that. So Reese Fountain, this will be his 4th time playing them. They're familiar with them. Rome's not going to be scared. Last year was a pretty close game. It was one of Juju's first ever starts. They ended up pulling away in that one. The key last year, though, is Carrollton had Bryce Hicks going for him, and Bryce Hicks obviously got hurt in the opener. So I'm trying to pull, I had these stats up. One sec, guys. Here we go. All right, so who are the players I think might make an impact for Rome? All right. What is his first name? So it's T. Stallings. I think he wears number 8 for them. He had the first touchdown of the season for Rome, a 20-yard touchdown catch from Reese Fountain. He also was extremely dangerous returning kicks. I've seen guys that can put on moves, but Cass had some really great defensive guys, and he was just making them hit the ground blowing past them, making big plays. So I think Stallings, he's a guy who's going to have a big performance. You got McDermott. He can run the ball. He can catch. You got D.K. Daniel, another big-time playmaker. He's part of that Rome receiving core that Reese Fountain is very familiar with. He feels like they are the best receiving core in the state. And then here's another guy, Chance Arthur. He is a junior running back, and he is a physical back. And then if you watch the Cass Rome game, the entire game we were waiting for Rome to have their knockout punch. They were dominating the game. They were up 20-0. It was 14-0 at the half. Who's going to be their knockout punch and finally put the game away? It was Chance Arthur. He came in with fresh legs early in the fourth quarter. They had a 3rd down and 8, and then they handed the ball off, and he just plowed his way through, picked it up. And then I think he took 6 more carries on that drive, eventually punched it in, 2-yard touchdown run. That put him up 27-0. So Rome knew they had that ability the entire game, but they kept their offense balanced, and then as soon as they felt it was time to put the game away, they gave it to Chance Arthur, and he just plowed his way. So I think Rome will be able to run the ball. I don't know if they'll do the same route. They'll probably try to establish it early in the Cass game. They were so confident with their defense that they really didn't have to worry about that. Their defense was just shutting down Cass. And then they also have, McDermott in that backfield. Rome is going to be able to run the ball. Reese Fountain's going to be able to distribute to his playmakers, and then defensively. So the last time we saw Rome, and obviously Rome shut out Lithonia too. That was like a 50-8 win. But I felt like Cass is a more even matchup. So that's the stats I want to look at. Rome had 25 first downs. Cass had 8. Cass only rushed the ball for 48 yards. Could not find anything on the ground against that Rome defense. They only had 99-yard passing. The longest play Cass had all game, I think, was 14 yards. They had nothing going deep. Carrollton's going to have to establish the deep ball, and then Rome is going to have to stop Caleb Odom. He's by far their biggest mismatch. I'd consider him to be Juju's favorite target. He's big, he's elite. He can play tight end. He can stretch the field and go routes. He's great in the red zone. So he's going to be the key. If they can match up with him in the secondary, it's also going to take extreme effort from the linebackers and defensive line to blitz when they need to, and I think they're going to dial it up. I found it so interesting when Rusty was in here on Wednesday. He was pointing out, I think Elizabeth did too, Rome doesn't even like putting up their huddle film online because they don't want to show anything. They don't want to show any opponent what they're dialing up. And I think in terms of preparing for a Carrollton team, they've probably watched a lot of Juju film. They know he's going to be able to escape the pocket, throw on the run. He's going to move around. And so it's going to be about going sideline to sideline and then holding strong on third downs. You can't let Juju keep these drives going and just kill you, especially with his feet. That'll be something that we might see him have to do if they're trying to flush him out of the pocket and the Rome defense is covering him. Juju might need to extend some drives with his legs. He's definitely athletic enough to do so. But then once you get in the red zone, Rome has proven this year they have not given up anything. All right, so then in that game, Cass was 3 of 13 on their third down conversions, 1 of 3 on fourth down. All right, so let's look at that Rome defense real quick. And yeah, in that game, Chance Arthur, the junior, 22 carries, 108 yards, and a touchdown. You had McDermott, 16 carries, 72 yards. and a touchdown. Very even distribution right there for both of them. Reese was 19 of 24 passing, so they ended up having 220 on the ground, 220 through the air, 2 rushing touchdowns, 3 passing. Receiving, Nick Hester, he's fantastic. 9 catches, 59 yards. So those short intermediate routes, he is a go-to reliable target. DK Daniel, 6 catches, 87. He had the 42-yard reception as well. He's the big play threat. And then you have Stallings, 2 catches, 44 yards. He's going to get involved. They want the ball in his hands. In terms of the defense, here we go. Number 22, Wilkinson for Rome. He's had defensive touchdowns in both games this season. In the Cass game, he had a fumble recovery and an interception. He also had 6 tackles. And then Rome, the stats that don't show up, they had so many tipped passes. And then that's how they're able to generate these turnovers. You have a batted ball on 3rd down, that pretty much is a turnover. If it was basketball and you block someone's shot, it is a turnover. So let's see. And then, hold up, let me pull up Carrollton real quick, because there is definitely a sophomore to watch for them offensively. And then they have a freshman receiver / athlete, Satterwhite, that had his first touchdown last week, but I believe that was in the second half of their South Paulding victory. So in both games this season, and this is due to Bryce Hicks being injured, but you have sophomore Kamari Farmer. He had 10 carries, 96 yards, and 3 touchdowns last week. He also had 3 touchdowns in the Hughes game. So he is 5'10", 175, explosive, versatile athlete. His freshman year, he only had 2 carries. Sorry, he had 3 carries for 12 yards and 1 catch for 6 yards. This season, he has 6 touchdowns already. So he's the breakout performer. He's going to be wearing number 21. He plays running back at corner, but he will be starting at running back. So a big test against this Rome defense. He obviously proved himself in the Hughes game, stepping up when his number was called. He's had a great start to this season, but now that Rome has had the film, seen his impact, he's definitely not going to sneak up on them. They're going to know that they want him involved. And then outside of Kamari in the last game, Dylan Bishop, 2 carries, 10 yards, and then Kelvin Hill, 1 carry, 2 yards. So they haven't had another back besides Kamari. Let's look at the Hughes game real quick. That was a 39-34. In terms of rushing, yep, you had Bryce Hicks, 2 carries, 13 yards. Juju, 4 carries, 4 yards. And then Kamari did the rest, 17 carries, 77 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He also had 1 catch for 6 yards. So, yeah, number 21, this is a big-time game for him. And Carrollton does not want to fall to 1-2 for sure. And then I feel like Rome just has a really big chip on their shoulder this year. They had a great season last year. They dominated in region play. We've mentioned 45 points per game was their average margin of victory, and then they ended up losing to Hughes in the playoffs, but everyone lost to them. And so I feel like they've just proven week in and week out they've stacked up against everyone extremely well. Let's look at what Caleb Odom has done this season real quick. The big 6'6", 220 target. So far this year, he had 7 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown against Hughes, and then 3 catches, 79 yards, and 2 touchdowns against South Paulding, averaging about 17 yards per reception, which was the longest play I think Rome's given up all year. So it's going to be a great matchup, a huge environment. Rome's always a fun place to see a game. The crowd's going to be electric, and you can tune in at 8 o'clock on Peachtree TV. We'll have all the links out coverage throughout the night. Let's see. Oh yeah, one other result. Let's go over some of last night's results. I saw Miller Grove had a huge win over Douglas last night, and that was a short week. Miller Grove was coming off their win in the Bash. Douglas was coming off their victory over Booker T. Miller Grove beat Maynard Jackson, and then they squared off last night, and I think what was the final score? Yeah, so that was a 33-28 win. A really big win for them. They got beat by Tucker week 1 and have responded with back-to-back victories. They'll play Campbell next Thursday and then Central Gwinnett before region play starts up. And Miller Grove, I thought that they were one of the better teams that didn't make the playoffs last year. They have a really tough region, though. Let's just go over it real quick. Southwest DeKalb, Holy Innocent, Stevenson, Hayville Charter, and Westminster. So big time right there. And I think they actually beat Westminster last year in their season finale and then lost the tiebreaker. Yeah, they won 24-7. So they're going to be competitive for sure. And we'll get some stats on that and update more when we return on Monday. But that's it for now. We got a busy day ahead of us. Be sure to follow us at Score Atlanta's Twitter account, the YouTube page, all our socials. We'll have all that content. Hope everyone has a great Friday and Labor Day weekend. Thank you.
What you doing?
Hey, just finishing this claim to get Dave back on the road.
Nice. I wonder what Dave's doing.
You do your thing. We've got you covered.